do. Bum, 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 bum. Excuse me. All right, looks like we are live. Someone already liked it. I like that. I guess I'm just waiting for word that the sound isn't atrocious. And hopefully we have a good connection and everything. So always sound is go. Awesome. Great. All right. So let's do some updates. Work proceeds apace on last week's alien piece. As you can see, what the hell was I thinking? I mean, you can see all the shit I'm drawing. And then I'm gonna do all the water on the ground there. So it's like it's a lot. And then I'm gonna be doing all this white paint stuff on top of it. I'm probably gonna be using some rubber stamps in here too, especially up in this area here and maybe back here in the water texture to push it back a bit. So this one will definitely be done this week. I have a bunch of other stuff to do, but I think this is about 2-3 hours more work and it'll be done. Other material. This one's done. So Rogue in the Savage Land is completely finished. There's the dinosaurs I added. 3 little like raptor size things. I figure Rogue wouldn't be afraid of raptors at all. And all the jungle, Frazetta inspired jungle going on everywhere, and pterodons or whatever giant dinosaur birds flying around too. Lots of fun. This one, and the alien one, and I was on a podcast this week. I think Anzer saw me. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm kind of happy how that turned out. I drew Frankenstein monster. I was on a podcast. God, I keep forgetting the name of the podcast. It's essentially he had a bunch of us artists drawing what he'd hoped would be mashups between comic book characters and horror icons. I'm trying to not have the glare from the shiny ink here. I wonder if I just turned all the lights away a bit. That's not really much better. Oh well. Yeah, so I kind of cheated and I chose Frankenstein's monster, who is a horror icon and a comic book character. I'm actually quite happy with how the hands turned out. If I bring it really annoyingly up close to the camera. There we go. Is that too close? It's getting blurry. All right, yeah, it's too close. Hopefully that came out clear. But this was really fun. Got to use some rubber stamps. Rare thing where I literally just slammed a whole head with the rubber stamp and then pulled up some highlights. So this will go in the shop this week. So 3 pieces at least going in the shop this week, depending on what else comes out. I might put some more Conan stuff up when I get a chance. So that's the old work part. The other thing is I spent a huge amount of time looking for my Robert McGinnis book. Literally, I decided to start tearing my apartment apart to reorganize it so I stop losing things like this. And I decided to go ahead and just order a new copy. So when I find my other copy, so if I haven't loaned it to someone and forgot about it and therefore lost a copy, if I find my other copy, I will probably have some sort of contest on my Patreon and give my second copy to whoever wins the contest on Patreon. Patreon. I can't remember. But anyway, Robert McGinnis, probably my favorite classic illustrator in the pulp novel, all that thing. I mean, yes, I love Frazetta. But what McGinnis did, nudity, cover that. There's a lot of it in here. I might Watch YouTube ding me. I mean, I should probably peek every page in advance before I turn. Just beautiful, beautiful drawing, beautiful, beautiful painting. Um, and he did so many of these brilliant crime novels. He does. I think I can't remember if he's passed or not. He finished off his career doing fine art, mostly Western paintings and landscapes. But look at this! Oh my God! I mean, it's so simple. Just like brush strokes for the leaves, the birch tree, very simply rendered. Brush strokes that drive the visual attention more towards us. The red against that kind of olive and black background, popping right out. A little bit splash of black in the birch bark against the blonde hair. Perfectly balanced out. You got the branches all pulling in towards the main figure. Just just absolutely brilliant. Uh, Two more pieces, no nudity, so that's good. Look at the wallpaper here. See, if I was doing this, what I probably would have done is I would have found like one of those wallpaper books and put the wallpaper on the canvas and then painted on top of it. I wonder if that's what he did. I really wonder if that's what he did, because that's what I would have done. God, look at that! Look at that! Just all that texture in the background, so brilliant. You can tell, you can see the time period these pieces were put together. I mean, I would, if I find a place selling his prints, I will definitely. And it has like one of the pieces that are my favorites. I'll definitely be hanging in my apartment. Just, oh my God, he's so brilliant. Just the way he applies color and everything. I'm not going to go through the whole book, of course, because there is, especially later in, there's a lot of nudity, and I don't want to have anything go wrong with it. Look at this. So he doesn't actually paint trees. This piece is so brilliant. Every time I look at it, so he doesn't actually paint any trees. He just has these brush strokes that are evocative of a tree. So you think she's in a forest. Then he does all these sharp, jagged spikes to resemble the grass or bring to mind the grass. But all the work he's doing is pretty much just in the figure. It's just brilliant, brilliant work. Oh man. I mean, just what he does with color and design. I mean, this is almost just a color drawing, this piece here. I mean, yes, it's painted, but it feels more like a drawing from the application of the values. I love it. So yeah, so if you're a fan of great art, I really recommend you get this. I'm pretty sure I got mine, the second copy on Amazon. First one I got what I got at the Labyrinth bookstore, back when they had a shop in downtown Toronto and in Oakville. They're completely online now. What I really should do is I should probably start including a link to Labyrinth. I'll talk to them and see if they're cool with that. So I'll probably start putting a link there, because that's pretty much, unless it's an emergency where it's like, damn it, I need this book. I usually go to Labyrinth. In fact, I just placed an order for 2 more books from Labyrinth this morning. They just notified me they found the book I was looking for. So this book, oh my God, Robert McGinnis, he's a god. He's a god. I love him. I mean, honestly, just, oh my God. There's another piece where it's got a woman sitting on a piano and the guy's playing a piano, and it's almost perfect. But just this one, it was like, you got the figure here, you got the gun in the shadow, but it's nice black, so it pops up against it, and you got her figure running right all the way through it. It's just a brilliant shape. Oh my God. So this is why I was so upset I wasn't able to show it to you previous weeks. This guy is just so good. He's so good. Um, yeah, I wish I could show. I'd flip through the whole book, spend a whole stream flipping through this, but I think that would be a little boring. Maybe I'll start doing like mini midweek, like with product reviews. I'll start doing mini midweek book reviews too. So I was originally going to do. Oh, let me. A lot of chatter here. Here we go. Sports jacket and crew back. Putting under it. Thank you for liking it. Thank you. Some of it was rushed. I think I talked about that before, but that was my fault. Thanks so much, Michael. Hi, Brandon. Meaning to get that book for a while now. Books like, oh my God, Vargas. Oh, Vargas is so good. Yeah. Yeah. So yesterday was Star Wars Day. And it was also Free Comic Book Day. And I only realized that was Saturday was the day, about midway through the day. Even, I mean, artist, don't get me started on my schedule. So I did a watercolor painting of Princess Leia pretty late last night. So this is just a printout of the photograph I took. After I did it, I was looking at it, and I thought it was an okay watercolor. But at the end, I already wanted to go back in. I didn't like how clumsy the neck got right here with the handling in the media. And I feel that I should have went a little darker with the value here in the lower part of her jaw. I kind of rushed. I wanted to get it done for, Star Wars Day. But then I was looking at, while I was working on some other stuff. And I realized, you know what? The drawing was pretty good. I think I got a likeness. The values are mostly there to serve as a decent underpainting, which it's unfortunate. I signed it already, but, underpaintings are underpainting. So what I did right away is I applied to the watercolor. I quickly applied a coat of matte medium. See, I wanted to pull up the bottle of it because it's sitting around here somewhere. So I just used it. No, that's clear gesso. Where's the matte medium? It's weird when you can't find something you just literally used last night. No, it's clear gesso. I got so many bottles of paint stuff. Anyway, so applied the layer of clear matte medium, which is it's slightly translucent. Let that dry, and then I mixed a little bit of burnt sienna into matte medium, mixed it with a palette knife so nice and even, and then I gave it a second coat. And the reason I did that is I wanted to give it a warm underpainting. So this is what it looks like now. Pull the camera down a bit because this is where it's going to be sitting most of the time. So I think you might be able to see some brush strokes. So what happens is by using the matte medium, so 2 coats of it, pushes the values down a bit. So, but also adding essentially a thin wash, burnt sienna, gives it this nice orange midtone. Right, all the values from the watercolor are still there, but it gives it a nice orange midtone. And honestly, I think this automatically looks better than the watercolor did, even though bad photograph. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to be using largely what's called the Zorn palette. Nope. Actually, okay, good call there on the Hoth Tatooine thing. All right, so the way I was taught, and this is how I approach it, if you're doing an underpainting, if the overall environment of the painting is warm, use cool colors for your underpainting. If the overall environment is cold, use warm colors for your underpainting. The warm cool contrast, when it peeks through, will enhance the vibrancy of the colors. So it's actually still going to be Leia on Hoth, but I'll be using cool whites, and again using the Zorn palette, so with maybe a few other colors when I feel them needed. So it's going to be pretty limited in that, but essentially I'm going to be painting cool colors on top of this warm background, and hopefully that'll work. So that's what I'm going to be working on tonight. And again, it's by using the matte medium. Really, where the hell did it go? Found my fixative. It is so strange. I can't seem to find anything. I look for a book. I have to order a new one. I'm even looking at the floor. Did I put it down on the floor? Does not appear to be so. All right. So what I'm going to be doing is talking through the process of how I was taught how to paint. And I'll be using acrylic gouache. So the colors are going to be titanium white, Liquitex, Um, Yellow oxide, which is, it's really yellow ochre. I haven't been able to find an actual cadmium red from them, which is kind of disappointing. They have primary red and scarlet, which I think is a little closer. So I'm going to be using that as the red. But I can cheat. If I want a deeper red, I'll tint in some of this. And where's my ivory black? Oh, you know what? Actually, I got a smaller yellow oxide. I want to use this up first. These small little. It was a gift from an ex-girlfriend. She gave me a bunch of trial sizes because I was interested in the medium and I liked it, so I used it. No, it's violet. I thought it was black. Oh, here it is. All right. You can tell which colors I use a lot of because I already shifted over to buying my own individual things. So here's this is Mars black. I'd rather have ivory black, but this serves. So those are the primary colors I'll be using. So that's the Zorn palette. In fact, I want to do some oil painting this summer. Every once in a while I pick up oil paints. So I picked up the Zorn palette in oils. So that's titanium white, ivory black, cadmium red light, and yellow ochre. And those are the core 4 colors for a Zorn palette. Anders Zorn is this famous Swedish painter. I think he's as notorious for using the Zorn palette as his paintings, which are quite excellent, of course. And where's my palette I'm using? Here it is. Yeah, so I'll be using this stuff. And I like using matte medium when I'm glazing. So that's also part of the reason why I'm a little pissed off that the bottles just stop jumping up in front of my face. So I use these old like plastic candy trays. This is from Ferrero Rocher. I don't think they make these anymore. Last Christmas, I didn't see any of these. So these serve as decent palettes. Sometimes I'll paint the underside gray, but I usually don't bother because the paint doesn't clean off of these very well. But it's the whole reduce, reuse, recycle bit, right? And I'm going to take one more look for the matte medium before I get really upset. Oh, right. Okay. Here's something else. So I ordered the oils. Haven't arrived yet. I also picked up some masonite boards, pre-gessoed. I believe this is an oil-based gesso. It's really surprisingly slick. I prefer a slightly coarser, so I'm probably going to put another coat of regular gesso on it and lightly sand it so there's a little bit of tooth in this. And I'm thinking I'm just going to do probably not necessarily like, movie characters. But I think I'm going to do studies based on photos of probably celebrities. So it'll test my ability to capture likeness and also do the studies, again, using the Zorn palette. And this is, I think, 8x10. And the reason why I picked these panels instead of just buying masonite and then gessoing it myself is apparently this is formaldehyde-free masonite. So there's no chemicals that will degrade the work in it. So that'll be a summer project for me. So here. Oh, I do have some matte medium right here. This is not the bottle I was using yesterday, though. that was a monstrous bottle. All right. Oh, there's a lot of chatter. Here we go. Yeah. One of the things, if you get a solid drawing and you establish something of a dark, this isn't as dark as I can go. I'm going to be getting into that in a bit. But if the drawing site and then you had a medium value everything, the medium value with the darks makes it start looking more like more realistic because of the way I closes things. I find ivory black goes cooler better. So if you're using it in the Zorn palette, it can emulate a blue. Mars, to my experience, it's a warmer black. So I might end up actually adding a little bit of blue into the palette as I'm doing the white areas because I want them to cool down a bit more. So Mars to me is a warm black. Ivory is a cooler black. Huh. Um, yeah, I think I'm going to be on for a while. It's a painting thing, so I don't think I can just cut it at 8:30 like I normally. I'm gonna go and talk through the process a bit. Um, okay, so the process. So with an underpainting, what I'm immediately looking forward for in the image is I'm identifying the area where there's the lightest light value and the darkest dark value. And once you identify that, you start working towards each other. So once you identify your whitest white, nothing is brighter than that. Everything's darker than that. And once you identify your darkest dark, everything is lighter than that. Nothing can be darker than that. And so it gives you, as you're painting, it gives you a tremendous amount of reference in the within the work you're working on. So it's like if I decide I'm kind of leaning towards, even though this would also be very cool color because eye whites are almost slightly blue all the time unless you got red eyes. Usually either the reflection on the underside of the eye or the eye itself usually ends up being um, the lightest light. Now, what I picked up for I found a decent color photo from the movie. I think this is like I used a black and white photo for reference, so that doesn't use for not very useful for color reference. But I found this photo and printed this off, so I'm going to be using this as a guide for what I'm going for. Now, looking at this, there's a highlight hitting here on her forehead. I should probably use a pointer instead of my finger. So you can see how light this gets. And you can see that the white of her eye is actually darker than that. Okay, which is making me think that maybe I should do the same here, right? Give an idea that there's a highlight here, perhaps on the top part of her cheekbone there, and maybe in the upper side of her nose. Those might be the brightest, whitest points. So, and then everything below. See, I think this is a little. The nose is a little darker than the highlight here on her forehead, and I'm pretty sure the tip of her lip here, the little highlight right by the philtrum, is darker than the highlight on her nose, and then darker than that. And the highlight here on her chin is definitely darker than the one by her philtrum, tip of her nose, and her forehead. So if you see how that process goes, I'm mixing colors, working down from that being the whitest white. And again, it's not the exact same picture, but this is the hierarchy of values. Now it gets pretty light there in the ear too. That might even be closer to that than the nose. I think the nose is whiter, but that it's also very light. So whenever I'm working down to the next area, I'm looking at what's lighter, what's darker. And the darkest part is here. Her eye is pretty dark. The shadows in her dark hair are pretty much near black, and that's pretty much near black there underneath her chin. And I have similar areas. Part of the reason why I printed out the picture, I have similar areas here in this picture. So this would be going near black. This would be going near black. This would be going near black. And I think her eye, maybe with a highlight, is going near black. So I have to keep those in mind as I go through the painting. Where is it dark? Where is it light? Where is it dark? Where is it light? Yeah, I definitely want to. Last time I was shopping for Liquitex, the store was out of so many of the colors I wanted. I think this was actually when I was driving through Michigan. I went to a Dick Blick. It was a Dick Blick, and they had a whole range of Liquitex colors, just none of the ones I wanted. So I have to be happy to look for other medias that will carry it. Now, to my mind, I think I want to start because it'll actually dramatically change this. I think I want to start with the darks because the whites can transform everything. And there's also some painterly illustrative pieces I want to work in because she's wearing this white coat. It's very white in areas. And the background, you can see the background. I'm going to be using the same values for the background. See how light that is. It's not as light as that, but it's very light. And in fact, there's a little bit of warmth in there. So I might even add a little bit of yellow ochre and just a touch of the black to bring that down. And so it'll gray it down and it'll warm it up a bit, but I can do it quite a few different ways. I should also put on my glasses. Oh, you know what? I don't think I used this black before. Let me. I think it's the first time I'm using this black. I think I finished off the other black last time I was painting. Yeah, I don't see a little container of black lying about. Has these little tabs that are supposed to make it so easy to open it, and yet here I am with my big long thumbnail, and it's like coming up. Oh, squirted a little black in my nail. There we go. I can go goth with my nails. I don't want any splatter when I got a painting right underneath me. There we go. Let me screw this top back on. And I think I'll use a palette knife and just scrape off this black for now. I don't like putting a lot of paint on my palette at any one point unless I'm working on a bigger piece. I try and scale the amount of paint I put out to the size of the image I'm painting. So this is just this is a 7x10 piece of watercolor paper, Stonehenge watercolor paper, 100% cotton. It's good. It's good stuff. So I don't think I need to have that much black out. And there's no color I shouldn't be able to not remix again. Now I'm going to be approaching this in more of a talkie situation than I normally would, because I literally could like throw down a mid-range white all the way around here and let it come into her coat, and then the painting's half done. Which is fine. But let's see here. Yeah, I'll put a little bit of matte medium here in the bottom corner so I can access it. Mix it in with the blacks as I go. Glasses, here we go. All right. So I know I'm going to be going really dark in here. In fact, one of the things I did just before I put that second coat of matte medium with the burnt sienna in is I took an ivory black colored pencil and I pushed the darks in here a little bit more. How's that showing? That's showing up at all? Can't tell on my laptop if the darker value is showing up. So when I went to art school, the way this was taught to us was to mix up a tiny little like 1 inch by 1 inch square of paint and put it in like a tile, which I think was my art teacher's misunderstanding tiling as a painting process. Tiling is like identifying an area that is dark or an area of a certain color and then working with it and trying to make sure you get that color correct. In fact, the more I think about it, after my own experience of teaching, I think there's a lot of stuff I was taught incorrectly based on assumptions or how people were taught without really looking into it. That's showing up at all darker. It looks darker to me, but I don't know if it's looking darker on the values on my laptop aren't great. It was just a cheap laptop I picked up for literally for streaming. Yeah, and this is the Mars Belt Black is a warmer black, which is okay. She has warm colored hair, but Actually, you know what? Good. I can use this for have the watercolor here for reference as well. And this is also something, since I'm using the matte medium instead of water. I did wet the brush first, but it allows the pigment to go into the brush easier. I use the matte medium as a thinner for the pigment. It means I can layer it on and get darker and darker as I go. So I don't have to follow the precise, mix that color perfectly every time. And I'll be doing the same thing with the highlights. It makes them a little transparent, which is, aiming for something that you generally get out of oil paints more than acrylics. But I like, whoop, I just booped the camera. Okay, it looks to me like maybe those darks are showing up. So even though I'm just darkening it slightly. Wow, maybe I should move the camera a little bit so I'm not booping it with my head so much. This is where I'm painting, so I'll move it in there. Yeah, okay, I think the values are showing up better in there now. The texture of the paper allows the brush to drag a little bit, which is great for hair because it actually puts in those aspects of hair strands without having to be too precise about them. Put this underneath here too, so it's less likely to move about. So I can have them peeking over the edge. Trying to see how I drew it in the original watercolor. The best part about using that medium is actually designed to be worked over. So you can see that just those darks getting that dark suddenly just changes a whole bunch of the dynamics of the piece entirely. Another area, I'm going to add a little bit more medium to it so it's not quite as dark because I may not want to go that dark. So it thins it out, but keeps it consistent. Let's go behind the ear here a bit because there's the back of her neck. And it's going to be tricky painting, getting that white peeking through there. But I want to have the darker value there. And I'll probably go over with like a super fine rigging brush. Again, this isn't 100% black. This is in terms of like darkness. I can go still darker still, which is a good thing to have in your pocket when you're just starting doing the this type of work. It's like if I get further into it and go, you know what, it's got to be darker still, I can just use pure undiluted Mars black, maybe even add a little bit of ultramarine blue just to give it the feeling of it being darker and cooler, which is not pure Zorn palette, but you do what you do, man. You got to do what you do. Yeah, I went really dark in here too in the watercolor, so I think that's right. And I'm smudging a thinner black over it, so it goes and makes it darker, but where it's more lightly dragged across, it has a lighter value. A little bit more medium, get back in here. Now, under her neck here, it's really dark. So that's me nailing. I think it's pretty dark inside the ear. Let me get that in there too. So I'm trying to get all the areas I think are the same value. I think it's some in her eye too, so I might just do that. I can go back and lighten it after. The beautiful part about acrylics is it's so easy to paint over as soon as it's dry. If I remember in the black and white photo reference, this hair is really fine. I could theoretically even do that with a colored pencil at the end of it, just to make sure I get that fineness. Makes it mixed media, but I'm okay with mixed media. Okay, and I think the inside of her nostril is effectively black. I think her nostril's sharper than what I drew too. So you can see how that, oh my God, looking at the laptop, it's looking strangely more photorealistic than I intended. Okay, so at this point, I think I've pretty much painted in all the darkest dark areas. Clean my brush. Good thing I didn't use much black. You can see that that's the little bit of black I put on my palette. The size of my hand, so you can see how little there is. And there's matte media in the bottom. I put a big puddle in because I don't want it to dry out too fast. I have a water spray bottle somewhere around here. I used it last night. Again, me looking for things, of course. If I'm worried that something's going to dry out too quickly while I'm doing something, I either take the lid to this candy container and pop it on, but I usually give it a little spritz of a little bit of water. And then it can sit and it won't dry out on me. Actually, just want to make sure. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to swap to, should I use a flat for this? I think what I want to do is I'm going to lighten up the background here. So I already know I want kind of like a cool white gray, like a super light gray. And it's a lot of area to fill. And it's not going to be near my purest white. So I got to put some titanium down. Titanium. That was way more than I wanted to put in there. Oh well. There's going to be a lot of weight in this painting, so I'm not too worried about it. And I want to use a flat. I don't have to use a good flat. I just have to use one that isn't too beat up. Oh, that's beat up. That's beat up. I use a lot of my flat brushes for acrylics. What's that? That's a round. Look how clean this one is. Doesn't have to be that clean because I'm doing the grays. It's kind of chunky. Another flat here. That's a small one. No, I think I'm going to do an outline with the color once I mix it. So I want a little bit of yellow ochre. Yellow oxide, same thing. And I am going to take it's primary blue. Do I want a warm blue? When a color brand puts something like primary blue on, it means they're using as little real pigment as possible. So this is what you would call a hue. PP15-1. Huh. Actually, if it's just PP15-1, it's probably is primary stuff. I don't know why. Oh, so they can cover their ass with the reds because they're never going to use pure reds. Nothing's coming out of the blue. There we go. There we go. So I'm going to take me a big dollop. I'm just going to mix into the white. I'm going to take a little bit of blue, a little bit of Mars black. So I just got that in the edge there. And a little bit of the yellow ochre. I want all those colors mixed in with the white. The black is really, really strong, so it'll gray out the white very quickly. This is like in art school to say, don't use black. Don't use black in your paintings because it will overpower all the other colors. And it's true, if you use black without any sort of self-discipline, you will completely overwhelm all the other colors. You have to use black very sparingly when mixing. So I got kind of a grayish white. It's going to be a little transparent going down. And yeah, let me outline the face so I don't risk, painting into that. And I actually can use the bottom of my knife as the palette to pull the paint off of it. So I want this. Be very careful going up to the line here. There's actually a little bit of water left in this brush from cleaning it. And that's okay because I can go on multiple layers with this. After I finished the watercolor painting, I had initially drew it with a very light red pencil crayon or colored pencil, because that disappears pretty easily under color. But I felt the lines disappeared too much, so I went back in with a warm blue indanthrene, I think it's called. Indanthrene blue colored pencil. So that gives me these really dark lines that have almost turned black under the burnt sienna wash I did. So I'm not worried about the opacity or flatness of this white. I might leave it rough. I might go back in and try and make it look more like some of the underground walls from Hoth. You can see the effect of like just adding the white here. And you see how transparent it is too. So some of that orange is already showing through. It's not really orange, but it separates her from the background quite nicely. And this is going to be darker than up here, so this can stay thin. And I might go more opaque with the titanium white near the top of the piece, just to give a sense that the light's coming from above. And after doing the talk about, light is light, dark is dark, part of the reason why I'm doing this middle range highlight for the background is it'll give me more control over when I bring the highlights right here. I'll be able to see, do I have to go darker with the background, or can I go lighter with the background? So it's basically still in the highlight area, but it allows me to better judge what I'm going to do in the highlights there in the face. Everyone's gone super quiet. Anyone have any questions about anything? Like, did you guys see issue 2 of Savage Sword? Did you enjoy Free Comic Book Day or Star Wars Day? So I got the details there. I'm probably going to come back in here and flatten that out a bit. Watch it turn on offline and no one's. Hey Jim, how you doing? Yeah. I kind of forgot. Yesterday was Free Comic Book Day and Star Wars Day at the same time. Even though I knew it, but I kind of forgot it. If you know what I mean. Where it's like I knew it was coming, and somehow when the day arrived, I was like, "What?" It was just, and I got together with my son, and we were going to go to the slightly larger comic shop out in Mississauga from us. There was like some traffic issues, and we just kind of said, "Okay, let's go someplace close." And they got shorted on the Free Comic Book Day stuff, so I didn't get my new Free Comic Book Day Conan. I weep. Thanks so much, Anson. Get you more coverage than maybe the reviews are pretty generally positive. There's some people who don't like how rough the art was, and I get it. Some people like it pretty, especially after Roberto drawing it. I mean, Roberto brings a pretty so much of that book. So beautiful. Okay, I pretty much cleared off the paint on the palette knife, so I'm going to actually start using the palette. And the palette knife went completely into my bucket of water. And yes, I said bucket of water. I when I'm watercoloring, I like to have as much water on hand as possible, so I don't have to keep changing it. The water gets dirty. Plus, I also don't mind like dirty water, but why make things worse? So I have, when you buy like a cake at a store, I have the top part of the lid from a store cake, and I've got that about a third full of water, so it's like about 2 liters of water sitting right to my right here in the studio. Yeah. Anything else I do at this time? Sorry, Enzo, I don't get where that's pointing at in terms of a question. It's yeah, it's burnt sienna in a mix with um matte medium as essentially a wash over the watercolor. Um, and now I'm painting with acrylic wash over over that. I could have used gouache. I think not too long ago my go-to would have been regular gouache over top of the watercolor after fixing it a bit or applying fixative. You can see some of the areas where this gray is thinner, and in person, some of that orange is peeking through, and it's doing exactly what I would hope it would do. Very happy with that. After I do the outline here, I think I'm going to pull out a flat brush, and be able to paint this in a little bit more. I'll grab it, have it at hand, so I don't put it down and lose it again. So this is just a round brush. You use it for watercolors and acrylics and stuff. Probably shouldn't use a watercolor brush with your acrylics, because acrylics are terrible for brushes. They destroy them, almost as bad as ink. There's an illustrator. I'm trying to remember the name of it. There's an illustrator who would do something similar to this. They would do like a mid-range portrait, and then they do an incredibly strong, striking color for the background, and that would be it. It was pretty fascinating work. Mostly during the 80s, early 90s. I haven't seen their work in ages. They probably moved on to do something else, because illustration as a career is it's not doing great for a lot of people. I'm gonna have to go back in and do that where the water was in the paint there around the jaw. I'm going to do that before I start using the flat, because it's a detail area. The other benefit when I'm using acrylics like this, as it goes in, it kind of flattens out the tooth in the paper. So I'm painting on cold press watercolor paper. Normally, I think if I knew I was going to do this, I would have done it on a hot press. And I wouldn't be dealing with the paper texture, but that's not an issue really. Yeah. I would have liked a lot of pages. I would have liked to have the 2-3 extra hours per page. Thanks. That creature took a long time to draw. So, it was also one of the things where it's like during the fight scenes, I find that details unnecessary in fight scenes a lot once you establish the shape of something. But I'm sure there's people, comic fans, who would have loved if I just rendered the hell out of it with that high level of detail for every moment. But it's like establishing shots. As soon as you show the area, the reader knows what they're looking at. So. The plastic palette knife I used is sitting in the bottom of the water bucket, and cleaning my brush, I'm touching it. Okay. So this is just a flat. It's a pretty beat up one I use with acrylics. So I can just fill in areas really aggressively here. Pick up a lot of paint. Now it looks like I mixed the right amount of this stuff because this is pretty much the amount of coverage I wanted from this. Maybe jam the bristles into the gaps up here. Because if we bring this back in, we can see how light it gets up here, right? So I can literally do almost like a wash of thinned out titanium white just to make it a little bit lighter and not have to worry about getting too intense too quickly. I can just like go over it, let it dry. You know, it's got to go a little lighter. It's a little more time consuming, but it saves you from making mistakes. Yeah, the tree style. There's a bunch of ideas that I was really like I had going over Jim's story when we're sitting and laying it out. The wolf attack. The wolf attack was me. The tree with all the weapons in it was me. I had to change some of the staging for the conclusion for that. But I just wanted this giant tree stump and this plane with all the trophies that these people had gathered. Now what I'm going to do is, since the jacket is, should pull this up a bit. Since this jacket is very white, and I still got this paint here, I'm gonna thin it down with a little bit of medium and some water, so I can do like a real thin. It's the same color as the background. In fact, here, just to show you, it's the same color. I'm gonna take some of what I just mixed up right over top of that. So I'm going to take a bunch of this and I'm just literally going to go over this from where I think it's going to be white. So I'm going to be covering over my signature and everything. I kind of want it to fade to white here at the bottom. So I'm going to So what I might end up doing here is not really getting too involved in painting her clothing, but just get a basic white here, allow some of that orange to show through, and then go more opaque with the white in highlights to give structure to the jacket. I gotta do it thin enough so that the lines that I drew in for the jacket still show through. I don't want to have to figure that stuff out again a second time. I mean, this way I pretty much use up all the paint I mixed up. Yeah, God, glazing is such an amazing tool. Oh wow, I just realized I forgot an area that I gotta go in at. It's a good thing I thinned it out because that's actually what I would have done for that area anyway. All right, and I just dropped my brush into my bucket. Okay, let me get a little bit of this. Still wet in the palette, so that means I can pull up some of the pigment. Get it into my brush. And there we go. She's essentially completely outlined. I could theoretically, if I really wanted to be like artsy fartsy, I could leave it like this. In terms of like likeness and everything, it's pretty much done. I'm not liking that line I left at the bottom of the jaw. I'm hearing him out of paint. See if I can cover that up a bit. This one a little too thick here. Yeah, there were certain things like Tarif, the boy from Leaving the Garden. I felt I had to get his expressions right because so much of the story was dependent on how he saw stuff, and having him scared and what he responded to being scared of. I thought was important for the context of the story and what his village was like. So that was important, and also just like I figured, since he's not really surrounded by functioning adults, Conan would be fascinating and terrifying. All right, so now what I want to do is I'm actually going to find what I think is the actual lightest light. So off to the side on my computer screen, so I can't look at it, I have the black and white photo zoomed up because I couldn't find a bigger photo because otherwise I would have printed it out and had it here. Um, Looking at my monitor, just in front of her eye is very, very close to white. This outside of her eye is also very close to white. The edge of the white of her eye, right around her pupil, is also very light. So those are all contenders for the lightest light in the photograph I use to do the drawing. It gets very light here in her ear. There is no highlight in her forehead as there is in the other photograph I printed out up here. That highlight's not here in the photograph I'm looking at. There's a little bit of shine on her lips, but doesn't look like that shine gets as bright as anything else. So I think the closest thing to a pure white is right here by her eye. And then on either side. So that comes out handy. So then this little area gives me the places to put the lightest lights, and then this part of the ear. Once I got that, then I can start playing down towards the other values. Okay, so for this, I need some of the red on my palette. So again, this is scarlet, not really the cadmium red I want to have. Just a touch of that, smidge, if you will. I got some yellow ochre still sitting there, and I'll need new white. So I'm mixing it here. And I think I might mix this with a brush. So I'll put these aside over there. So I'm basically tinting white. So I'm going to mix a little bit of yellow ochre and a little bit of the red. Get myself kind of like a fleshy orange color. Mix up a lot of it because I'm going to be a lot of it comparison here. Clean the brush. And then what I do is, once I have all that pigment out of the brush, I take the tiniest bit of it and mix it with some white. And I mix it till it's almost white. It's almost a pink. Yeah, a little bit more yellow to that. So exciting. I'm not showing my palette and telling you what I'm doing on it. It's not a very exciting palette. So I'm going to start here in the front part of her eye. I'm going to smudge it with my finger to thin it out a bit. I think that's working. You got to really like just carefully keep looking at your shit, man. Make sure it. So I got to make sure that this is lighter than the background here, but still the highlight. So what I did is I mixed in a little bit more of my base skin color. I mixed for her, added it to the white, and I'm working around it. Yeah, she has almost like she really has almost like a pinky white skin color in this photograph here. So I'm mixing up even more of that. See if this works. I think it's going on too thick. I use my finger to brush it out a bit. Okay. I certainly do not mind dry brushing color in. Oh, wait, catching up on chat here. Decided to add a bunch of comic themed drawings into an art sale here locally coming up next week. Go for it. She really was. I mean, Jodie Foster had Jodie Foster said yes, because I don't know if everyone knows this, but I mean, she was the first person asked. I'm going to add just a tiniest touch of black skin color to take out some of the vibrancy, so it grays out a bit more. Jodie Foster and I think Carrie Fisher captured the energy that Jodie Foster would have brought to that role. Now, if I go too pink I'm not too worried about getting too pink with the skin, because I can go over it with a glaze of the titanium white, and that will lighten it up quite a bit. So I think this value is pretty close to this part here on her forehead. And I think this color here is also the color that starts emerging around her ear. So, and bouncing around, again, this is me doing that whole lightest light, darkest dark thing. I have to make sure that I'm consistent in where I'm seeking for those values. That might be lighter than that, but it's good to have it there. And then this goes down into that. Values, so two things. If you're going for full-on painting, values are the most important thing. You have to get those values. The colors themselves don't really matter. If you get all the values right, everything else will fall in place. If you're doing an illustrative drawing, everything that carries the drawing is the most important aspect. And then the colors can be whatever the hell you want. Values become less important because they're usually drawing values, if that makes sense. I think some of this color is actually even in the tip of her nose. I think there's some right here. I think it's apparent. What I'm doing is I'm finding a value and I'm searching the image for similar values, and then I'm adding them together. I think this is more washed out. It's not lighter, it's more washed out. So then using the Zorn palette, tiniest touch of black, grays out the color, reduces the saturation. Like we're talking about like what would come from the head of a pin. So there's an aspect that is almost sculptural painting this way. I'm trying to literally see how everything merges together with the values here, and it means you're perpetually mixing more paint. Yeah, a little bit more. The red here, a little bit more of the yellow ochre, more of the yellow ochre because that wasn't enough. Yeah, again, touch of the black just to take some of the heat off of that. Black is magical in the sense that it does so much heavy lifting when I'm working with this palette. So now I'm coming down to, I'm just taking a significant step down in value because I want to drop down like maybe in that way I can, so this area here is significantly darker than the lighter areas I painted in. But if I start applying this and realize, yeah, that's too dark or too light, then I can change it now. I also kind of want some of that richness to come through in the color. I'm going to add a little bit of medium to that, get it a little washier, or a little more transparent. No, okay, that should have been down there. Okay, I can. By putting these colors next to each other, you see how light that is, how much that darkens down. I know I got to come up with an intermediary color in there, or an intermediary value. Sorry, that'll make that work together. So it's a constant process of finding out what sits best side by side. I may want to actually add a little bit more red in here. But I won't know until after I see how this goes down. Okay, now I want to bounce back up to the forehead a bit. What I'm doing is I'm taking the color I mixed here. I just added a nice big dollop of white to it, and again, just a touch more black. No, a little bit more black, a little bit more white. Okay, this is getting better. Okay, see how this works. Add some medium to that, thin it out a bit, so it's not quite as strong. And when I thin it out with the medium, which makes it transparent, or somewhat transparent, like oils, then I can actually, the blending starts happening a little bit better because it's not covering either color as opaquely. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you see how that's sort of coming together? That makes sense. Um, there's going to be some color shifts as I go through. Again, this is almost too pink. A slight white wash or glaze over this might work. It'll have to carry some color, of course. I think I'm going to go to at least 9 tonight, if that's okay. If you guys don't mind me going long. I think actually that should have been there. And you can see me painting over and over and over again because it's I'm fiddling with the values. It's just oops, big blob of paint just came off the brush there. I have to be wary about. Oh, you know what? I need more white on my palette. There, ooh, that was a lot of white. So again, it's like you find your lightest light, your darkest dark, and you keep bouncing around until you're sure you nailed it. So even if you put down what you think your lightest light is at the start, may not be by the time you get like another 20, 30 minutes into your painting. And then you have to adjust your highlights. I think my initial highlights might have been a little too dark. I mean, I just realized one of one of the things I really firmly believed in as an art instructor. No, it's still too dark. Is that you have to show students mistakes. If everything's too easy, like if I planned this out as a demonstration, I would have done this painting once already as a practice run for the actual stream. I wouldn't be doing the thinking as I'm painting. I'd be performing the painting. So I think it's incredibly important that I show that no matter what your skill level is, it's actually still a struggle. There we go. So now I get the highlights I think are much more appropriate. I think that's a lot closer to what I need. And I can glaze over them to make them work a little bit better with everything else I've already done. And that means this gets lighter up here. That means this gets lighter over here. It means the ear gets lighter as well. She is hard. I think that's probably why I lucked out not having to draw her until I think I was ready to draw her. All right, cool. All right, very cool. And when you get these colors side by side, actually, I'm going to do is I'm going to take the brush load with the pigment on it and make a really super light glaze because that might save me having to mix new colors. See if I can get that lighter without having to. Yeah, that's better. And I think. Yeah. Again, dry brushing in. Now, in terms of like technique and practice and all that stuff, if there's anything you guys want me to specifically show on one of my streams, you want me to get into, like, how what's my experience with this, show you how I do this, I am more than happy to do that. Like, if you want me to do a whole bunch of sequences on painting or on inking or any of that stuff, I'm your huckleberry. So I glazed out that the new highlight value, and so I can actually just glaze it over the areas I've already painted, and it lightens them up without me having to completely mix up new opaque paint and go over them. I think this goes down here a bit more. Use that also for the highlight on the bottom lid of her eye. And portraiture is about all these weird subtleties. And I think it's why women are slightly harder to paint than men, is because they generally have more gentle features to work with. So if you're heavy-handed like I usually am, getting those delicate gradations and value and everything are kind of difficult. I wonder if I should paint Carrie's moles. Carrie, not visible in the makeup here, but Carrie had all these really, really fine moles all over her face. I feel that this gets lighter up here. Maybe a little bit more medium. Oh, chat. Thank you, Kimberly. Yeah, and it took me a long time to learn about underpainting as well. Jim. Light and shadow is based on principles. So we can go over that. We can do like schedule up a live stream where I pick up something to draw specifically that's dealing with light and shadows. I think that'd be fun. I'm really fiddling with the eye because everyone's going to look at the eye. They're going to want to know everything that's happening around the eye. I think I have to go darker on the underside of her nostril. Let me do this first. Get the underside to value there first. The wonderful thing about using matte medium, I think I saw, um, gosh, what's his name? Really, really, really good painter. He uses matte medium and acrylics over top of pen and ink drawings. David Finch had him on a little while back on his stream. And I went, wow, that's a cool way to use matte medium. But this is how I use matte medium. I'm nowhere near as impressive a painter as he is. God, what's his name? Comic artist, non-English speaking. Damn it, blanking on his name. It'll come to me. You can go over to David Finch and check out his site. He's got a great site. What I like doing is if I nail a value, I can add medium and it becomes a glaze for me to bring the other colors adjacent closer to that level. It's a lazy way to go from lightest light to darkest dark and bring all the other pieces you put on, all the other stuff you put on the palette up to the same level. So I have that highlight color that I came up with. And what I'm doing is every time I'm moving further down the face, further away from the light source, I'm adding more matte medium, which is thinning out that highlight, but allows me to lighten up everything else I painted. So it's not as bright, but it's actually lightening the values as they go through. So it's a cheat, readily admit it. It's not pure Hawthorne method to the process, but it works for me. Because sometimes you want like a super subtle change, and just the tiniest bit of pigment in a glaze with matte medium will give you exactly that. I want a little bit more light here. There's a bone there in the front part of the skull, so I can do that there. So that comes like that. So that's there. There's a little that. Oh God, I'm blanking the name of it. There's that groove that comes around the side of your nose down to the edge of your mouth. I let that go. I got to go back in with a darker color for that. Olivetti, yes. Ariel Olivetti. Oh my God, is that guy good? Is that guy good? And he's got this brilliant way of he simplified it down. He does a black and white, I think, pen and ink drawing, and he after it's all dried and everything, I think he puts a layer of matte medium over the whole piece as well, and then he basically does thin washes over the whole piece, and the black and white drawing carries it. Now that's pure classical illustration work. I love it. So good. I think I want to. Is any of this dry? Oh, okay. I let some of my other value steps dry out. I should have pulled up my spray bottle, but nah. I just want to keep going till 9. So I think the face is starting to emerge pretty well from where it's supposed to. Adding a little bit of water so I can get this here, and take a little bit of red. Let's see what I get here. I want to put more pink in that ear. But I don't want it to go in too heavy, so I'm thinning it out with a significant amount of medium. I don't know why I'm talking so quietly. I guess I'm trying to turn this into an ASMR channel. Yeah, let me put some pink glaze over this. I'll lighten it a bit, but also bring that color out. More of a highlight in there too. All right. I think they put some sort of glitter makeup on Carrie for this. Because she has some kind of strange highlights showing up in grooves that generally don't show up like in there. That makes sense. So I think that's a makeup decision. Before I let you guys go today, I'm probably going to do that eye so you can see what I'm talking about in terms of getting that blue light there. Oh, I've never seen Simone Bianchi do his work. I'd love to, of course. I'm a big fan of every other artist. I'm terrible that way. Given a chance, I'll watch someone else work rather than do the work myself. Okay, so I think yeah, I want more of the highlight there in that lip, and they kind of merge. So I'm going to blend that there. So I hopefully this. It's me, Simone. Come and watch me paint. That's so terrible. I should never be allowed to do that, but I'm not going to stop. It's more that high there. I really like the way the light in the black and white kind of just explodes in the air here. But I want to get some more of that pink in there. So it's not like a black hole, it's more of a warm color in the air. How are we doing time-wise? 8:40. All right, shit. I want to do that eye. I might go past the eye in terms of what I paint, but I want to get that cool blue. So what I do, hey, it's not ivory black, it's Mars black. So I'm going to add a little bit of actual blue to it. I got to clean this brush a little bit more than that. All right. So I'm taking a dollop of white, the tiniest amount of blue. Oh, that's way too much. Wipe my brush over there. Yeah, that's pretty good. And I'm going to take a tiniest amount of black, just a smidgen of it, just to gray it up a bit. Yeah, so what I've just mixed is a color that's just below the brightest point on the eyeball here. Now I drew the eyelashes in. I'm trying to pay attention to them and maintain them, but I can always draw them back in or paint them in later. It's too much, so I just lighten it up a bit. I actually painted into the pupil bit because I'm going to go back in with some black and bring that out. but what I'm focused on here is, you know what? I bet it'll make it pop a bit if I add a little bit of yellow ochre, just the tiniest amount of yellow ochre into some white, just to give it a warmer color. Now it looks like she's looking over behind her back. Should I go lighter than that? I'm going to bring that highlight down into the underside of the bottom lid there. Now, Carrie has brown eyes. So even though Mars Black is a warm black, I'm going to add some of the red to it. Just enough, just to warm up that black a bit. So it's not overwhelmingly black, but it's close to pure black. And then I'm going to go back in here on the eye here. I think there's the ever slightest of highlights on her eye at the top of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it alone for a second, let that black dry, and I'm going to take some of that same highlight color I used for the white right by the end. In fact, I'm going to put some more in there. Just want it a little bit thicker. There we go. See how that's popping a bit more? Hopefully you're seeing it. That might be dry now, so I'm going to turn it into a dry brush thing, wipe off most of the pigment. And right where I think the light is hitting the top part of the eye, there. Okay, so we got 15 minutes left. What do I want to work on now, most of all? I can keep working on the face because the process is going pretty good. What I could do is I could show you guys what I mean about glazing the upper part of the gray and have it come, basically go from a lighter color and let that gray come down to basically pop her hair more from the background. Or I could do some hair highlights. So many things I could do. Even theoretically, what I could do is I could finish off this part here with just a wash of the flesh tone and let the underpainting carry the shadow work under her jaw here, where I kind of blew it. You can see how clumsy I was here in the watercolor. The camera made it sharper, like the edges are sharper, but there's different values in there. There's some reflected light under her jaw. But what I could do is I could do a wash of that skin color and with medium and just brush it down. So it's this is already doing so much of the work. Do some of the highlights in the lips, the white in the background, the white on the jacket, just to highlight some of the highlights in the hair, and it could be done. For what the painting's done when you think you've gone as far as you can without fucking it up. That's always been my understanding of like when a painting's done. This is kind of light. I think I want to go a little lighter here. The glazes also smooth out the texture because the brush strokes get a little sloppy with all the layers. I think I want to push this back down a bit. That might be too much. I'm going to shift up to a slightly larger brush for what I'm doing now. I'm not going to go back to this until everything else is worked up to where I want it to be. So that's the time to. I think one of my favorite teachers. God, what was his name? Can't remember his name. That's terrible because it was such good advice. He basically said, use as big a brush as you can control for the situation. And I didn't understand why he was pushing for that at the time, but boy, was that good advice. So I got slightly larger. This is the brush where did I put it? Here we go. So this brush I was using for all the details, it's all like mungled up because it's an acrylic brush, and it's a cheap one at that too. Royal Aqualon. About like in the pack. The pack brushes are always the worst, but this one's like twice as wide, so I can actually do like the stuff here. I'll probably end up painting up over the hair and everything, but what I would do is I want to get the rest of the jawline value and then the little bit of the side of her neck because there's some light hitting here. Some light hitting there. I lost control of that value there too. Oh, sorry. Lost control of the value. It should be darker there going that way and just subtly popping where it's like this is almost as bright as that. So that shouldn't be. So I'm going to mix up some more of that skin color, that base skin color, which is the red with some yellow. Again, nice orange color happening. More yellow. Oh, you end up needing to add more yellow. Yellow ochre, yellow oxide is such a subtle mixing color that the red really overpowers it. Now I always end up grabbing way too much red. Let's just grab all this yellow here. There we go. That's better. And I'm going to steal some white. Bloop. And since I'm working away from the most saturated place, I'm going to add oh my God, 2 pinheads of black. Just to desaturate it a bit. That probably is too much, but if I thin it with some medium, bloop, it'll probably still be serviceable and I can adjust it as I go. That's not too bad. Oh, it's darker than I thought it'd be. I have to add a little bit more white to that. Yeah, let's get some more white in there. And again, you can see it. You can see an edge there. I'm going to go back in. I'll mix till I can find a nice intermediary value, probably with a glaze, and get that to blend better. Give her too hard an edge of her jaw. I know light's traveling through here behind the hair, which is making it awkward, but I can loosen it up a bit there. And paint right to where I think that shadow would go. I think I want a little bit more red, maybe almost like a brown, because I think those are the colors they use on Carrie in Star Wars, so it's probably more of a brown color. That's still too dark. I'm going to mix a little bit more medium into this. Let's see if it serves for the So essentially I'm dry brushing in layers of very thin, very diluted media infused pigment that I use in the lower half of the jaw here. Let's get rid of that. The hair value is kind of messing with me a bit. And actually go right over the ear and I'll reestablish the darks later with some red, more warmer color. I want to be able to see through the hair, see some skin through that the hair texture. So I'm going to put some skin underneath that and go over with other colors later. Yeah, I have a copy. They mailed it out to me. It's great. I'm using acrylic gouache, so I'm using both technically sketchy. I'm using Liquitex acrylic gouache. Let me add a little bit more white. I've got more white to the palette. I go through a lot of white when you're doing like skin tones and such. There you go. Let's see how this works. No, it's too late. Daub it up a bit. No, I got to thin that out a bit more. Take some more medium. Find a dry spot in my palette. Got some of these little semi-congealed areas of pigment around here. think I got to get more of a highlight inside that ear as I go forward. Just seems to be more brighter, more light's hitting it. Did you get to see a walrus? Did you get to see Savage Sword 2? Good times all week? Well, yeah, it's been a pretty good week. I mean, Savage Sword's out. Generally, people are liking it. I got to draw a cool Frankenstein piece. Got to finish Savage Land Rogue. Almost done the Alien. Whole lot of good stuff going on. So I want that to be a white highlight, but to get that to work, I think I have to go in with the white here. Not too thin. That's very wet. Let me dry this off. Establish how bright the white is on their coat. So when I do the highlight of the white here, when I cool down the flesh tone and have a whiter highlight on the underside of her jaw, you can almost feel where that color is coming from. And small amounts of black to desaturate. going on too heavy. Gotta thin this out a bit off the brush. I can go back in with the black and reestablish that bit. Thanks, Jim. Yeah, I was really. Oh, what's this? No, I keep forgetting. Yeah, he's got a lot of experience, Jim. Yeah, I watch him when I can, and that's um, his channel's always worth watching. His guests are amazing. So I'm always really, really happy to watch it when I get a chance. The reason why the ear here looks so terrible is because there's all this hair curling around here, and I'm painting knowing that's happening, but I'm just kind of like going through it. If that makes sense. That crease there, God, I wish I could remember the name of what it's called. Crease there is like still just a touch too dark. Deciding what pile of paint to dig into for this. Thin it up a lot. See if I can just do it with just a tiniest touch of, just to get it. Nope, not enough. That's better. All right, so we're past 9. No, I'm going to do a little bit of the, just a little bit. I don't want you guys to go too late. I know everyone, including me, is going to work tomorrow, but I know it is forcing you to sit up through this. I dropped a brush in here. No, that's a palette knife. All right, where's that big flat I was using? There it is. All right. So just the tiniest touch of black, a little bit of that blue that's still in the palette, and that white, and more white because that was still too much of the other pigments. Just happy none of these tubes have made like serious, significant fart sounds. So I want the top of this piece to be near white. You can see that barely lighter. I wanted to get close to a base tone of this. So when I add more white, I can add it sloppy and then blend it. I don't want a perfect gradation because that's almost too mechanical. I want like a very human gradation with mistakes and bits of color. There's still little tiny bits of the burnt sienna showing through, which I'm really happy with. What I might actually do before I let you guys go is I might just peel off some of the tape so you can see what a weird effect that is, but I might want to save that for next. You know what? What I'm going to do is I'm going to finish this week, and I'll peel off the tape live next week. I'm pretty sure next week's going to be Conan. All right, here we go. Eric grows on something. Paddle. Yeah, I get that. I like that. I like the way Eric is catching up with him and everything. Yeah, deal with your dogs, man. Dogs are important. They're family. All right, everybody. So here's my end of stream ramble. Um, please like and subscribe. That's apparently really important to other people discovering the channel. If you want to support me more directly, I have a $1 a month Patreon, Richard_Pace. You get to see a whole bunch of stuff earlier than anyone else does. You get behind the scenes, you get to see sketches, layouts, comps, all that stuff. And there's some, and in terms of the work that gets censored everywhere else, it gets posted uncensored on my Patreon. So just $1 a month, bargain. So yeah, next week I'm pretty sure I'm going to do Conan. I've been convinced by someone to do young Conan, so I'm thinking in Zamora, blanking on the name of the city where Tower of the Elephant takes place. I'm not going to do Tower of the Elephant, but there's a line about the city. Zamora with the spider haunted towers and dark haired women. So I'm going to probably do Conan breaking into a spider temple. That seems to be like what's in my mind at the moment. Yeah, so that's next week at 7. Thank all of you for showing up and talking. It's a lot more interesting when people are talking back to me. What's my, yeah. I'm sad about what happened with Carrie there. Yeah, so I'll have this. Unless something really bizarre happens, I should have this and the alien piece done for next week. I'll probably have the alien done and posted on my shop by Friday. I didn't want to just post one piece on the shop Friday, so I'll be putting 3 or 4 pieces up on the shop this coming Friday. And I'll do the reveal. I'll do the paint peel for the Carrie next Sunday night. You guys have the best possible week. If you have any thoughts or questions during the week, feel free to leave them in a comment. I read all the comments because I mean, I only got like 600 followers, so there's not many comments. So it's really easy for me to stay on top of them. Also, I'm on Instagram, Richard_Pace, if you don't follow me there. Again, have a great night. Thank you for showing up, and good night.